Hello, everybody. Good afternoon.
Hello.
Welcome to our 1 o'clock webinar today. So my name is Anika and I have with me Emily here.
Hello, I am here. My camera is not working for the moment, but we'll see. I think most of you will know me by now. I'm Emily, and I'm from the UK originally.
Okay, and my name is Anika and I'm from Bangladesh originally. I used to live in Malaysia for a long time before I moved to Italy around 6 years ago.
Mhm.
So I can see some people are already joining us. So welcome.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Please tell us your name and where you are today.
Yes, so I'm going to write down some questions for you guys if you're still around. Um, so tell us your name, where you are. Hi, Johnny from Padua. Thank you for joining us.
Hi. Oh, Jenny, you're very dedicated because I know you were with us yesterday also. And Marco was too. Welcome again, Marco.
Oh, yeah, it's nice to see you guys.
Okay, so we have an unusual topic for today. We have local eccentrics.
Mhm.
So what is an eccentric? What do you think? Or who is an eccentric?
The hardcore, Johnny.
Yes, I think you two are the survivors of the masterclass.
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. Like, what is an eccentric? So if
Mhm.
you guys know the answer, just feel free to just tell us.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
But in the meantime, we can talk about whether you think it's a positive thing to be an
Mhm.
eccentric or negative, or you think it's neutral. What do you think, Emily?
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. So we have hi Alessia and Johnny straight off the bat, a quirky
Whoa.
and unconventional person. That's great. That
Yeah.
is absolutely what an eccentric is.
Hmm.
So in that sense, I think it's quite neutral.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah,
Yes.
I.
Okay.
Mhm,
Well, I think it's a positive thing.
mhm,
It makes
okay.
things interesting for me. I mean, if someone does something different from others, it definitely makes things interesting. And I somehow think creative people are a little eccentric. So
Mhm,
I
yeah.
view it as something kind of positive.
Mhm,
Would
yeah.
you agree?
I I would, depending on the tone. I think it definitely can be a positive word, but I also have heard it used in a kind of patronizing way. You know,
Hmm.
if someone says, "Oh, they're very eccentric," in a
Yeah.
way that's saying, I don't like them because they are weird, because they are strange." So
Yes,
I think it's all about how you use it, this one.
I agree with you. I mean, depends on how, the tone of the voice, as you said. Yeah.
Mhm. And Marco has given more detail as well. So, someone who lives outside what is considered normal, absolutely, moral and costumes. Probably not costumes. So, costumes is um, like a special outfit that you wear for an occasion. Yeah, probably codes, moral codes, or as Anika's just written, customs. Um, Unless you are deliberately talking about clothes, maybe they do wear different different clothes or they dress differently. That
Hmm.
it can definitely be true. Yeah, that's a really nice point. Thank you, Marco.
Yeah.
Are
Okay.
you an eccentric, Anika? Do you think?
Well, I think in general I'm not an eccentric person, but perhaps I
Hmm.
may have a behavior or two that is eccentric. But in
Yeah.
general, I would define myself. What about you, Emily? Would you say you are eccentric?
Um, I think some people might call me eccentric. I'm not sure I would call myself eccentric.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
prefer the word that Johnny used, quirky. I think quirky
Hmm.
is maybe a bit more fun.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe we can move forward
Yeah.
and talk more about it.
Hmm.
So basically, we are going to discuss about being eccentric, yeah, peculiar behavior, and so on. Our share our opinions on this.
Hmm.
Okay. So here are some interesting questions we're going to talk about. Do you have any eccentric behaviors or habits? So
Hmm.
let us know for our viewers the answer to the first question. Do you have any eccentric behaviors? So as for me, for example, I sometimes talk to myself when I'm like working or I don't know,
Okay.
doing my own thing. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that would count as eccentric because I think a lot of people do that as well.
Hmm. They say that talking to yourself is the first sign of madness. I don't believe that myself, but I've heard that said.
I think I've heard that too.
Mm.
Probably it's right, who knows?
Mm. And I think it's worth mentioning also, we talked about an eccentric, so eccentric as a noun,
Hmm.
that is to describe the person. But as you can see here, and as you have probably heard before, eccentric is also an adjective to describe a behavior more
Hmm.
specifically.
Yes.
Um, Anika, what's the noun for this adjective, eccentric, for the behavior?
So it's an eccentric behavior. So eccentric itself can be a noun if that's what you were asking,
Yeah,
right?
for a
An
person.
eccentric, yeah. So did you mean a behavior that's eccentric? Hmm.
Yeah.
Um, something. Okay, that's I couldn't think of
you
different
can
words here.
you can also see it in question two.
Okay. Mm, okay, eccentricity. Okay. Is that what you were going
Yeah,
for? Yeah, okay.
it was. Yes.
Eccentricity.
Yeah.
I couldn't think of that. I was thinking a person who's eccentric is an
Yeah.
eccentric. Yeah.
So for a characteristic, you can say you have an eccentricity, or you have a quirk related to quirky.
Yeah.
Um, and so those are words that maybe you say, I'm not eccentric, but I have
Mhm.
some eccentricities.
Yeah.
Um, Also, if you
Me
can
too.
use eccentricity for documents, if something
Mhm.
is wrong on a document, you can say there are some eccentricities in this file,
Mhm.
which is a way to say there is a problem without directly saying that.
Okay. Yeah, good point. I'm gonna write that down.
Okay,
Okay, so
I'm
what about
trying
you
to.
guys? Those of you who are watching, tell us about any eccentricities
Mhm.
that you may have. Uh,
Yeah, please do.
yeah. Or if you're not eccentric, if you're not an eccentric, you can mention that as well.
Yes, absolutely. I think everyone has something,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
If I
Um,
think hard enough, maybe I can think of some more eccentricities I have.
yeah, yeah, me too. I also speak to myself, but
Oh yeah. I don't feel so bad anymore now.
no, no. Okay, we have a nice comment from Marco. Thank you. I think for someone, remember, it is natural to be eccentric. For others, it's part of their persona. Okay. they are conscious, and probably they emphasize certain behaviors. Okay, yeah. So I think about maybe comedians, for example. Maybe they
Mm-hmm.
have a small eccentricity and then they emphasize that in performance. I think that's a really interesting point.
That's
And
good.
maybe
Mm-hmm.
some of you agree that performance and eccentricities go well together. Maybe we can think moving forward some more about why that is.
Mm-hmm.
Why are performers eccentrics too?
Mm.
Yeah.
Great. So Alessia has a comment here. She says, every morning, I'm going to show it up here.
Hmm.
Every morning I open the windows in my house for about an hour, even if it is raining.
Okay.
That's really nice.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. A way to refresh your
Yeah.
house.
Yeah.
Yeah. A nice
Mm.
eccentricity.
Yeah. And Johnny here says you can show your eccentricity in your
Mm.
work or at work, and not in your behavior. Hmm. Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you mentioned work. Like, I guess it also depends on what type of work. Like at some in specific type of jobs, you're supposed to be very
Hmm.
standard, keep things standard, and not do something unusual. But in some jobs, it can really work out well.
Yeah.
So, what about your job, Jenny? Tell us about it. Do you have to be
Mhm.
eccentric in your job in any way?
Yeah. I think if you work in an office, for example, there will probably be an eccentric in your workplace
Yeah.
or in your family. Many of the people in my family are eccentrics, I think.
Hmm. It's also funny how some things, some people will consider eccentric and others won't. They would think it's
Mm,
usual. So it also
yeah.
depends on the type of person you are.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Hmm.
Um, okay, yeah, maybe we can return to Marco's point and my question about performance and
Hmm.
eccentricity. So why is that a correlation? Why do those things go together?
A good question. I'm going to write this down. Why is eccentricity related to performance?
Hmm. Because for me, maybe it's about expressing something different. People like to hear about
Mhm.
difference. But I'm curious about what you all think.
Yeah. Jenny has a comment here. Oh, he works in the environmental field, wastewater treatment. Now I'm retired. Oh,
Right.
that's a really great, like, yeah, I think it's a very great field. It's
Hmm.
especially useful nowadays
Yeah.
because of all the environmental pollution and waste management
Hmm.
issues.
Yeah. Very important. Okay.
So, yeah, that's a great point you talked about, Emily. So, performance. I think people are drawn to eccentricity in some ways. It's
Hmm.
certainly more interesting and engaging.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Maybe if we think about some famous characters as well that have eccentricities, if I the one that comes into my mind immediately is someone like Sherlock Holmes. You know,
Oh,
either the
really?
TV version or the original detective,
Right.
um, and the way that he lives his life
Yeah.
very chaotically and
Yeah.
thinks a little differently. Um,
That's a great example.
maybe other people have other examples as well.
What
Okay.
comes to my mind would be Jim Carrey. He has
Okay.
certainly strange behaviors, and
Mm-hmm.
is really entertaining, very funny.
Mm. Yeah, I agree. I think
Hmm.
that's another really good example.
Hmm.
Okay, so maybe we can move on to the next question, but we would love to hear your thoughts on this as well.
Yeah. So, do you think eccentricity is a conscious decision or something that happens naturally?
Hmm.
Yeah. What do you think, Emily?
Another really interesting question. I think this is related to what Marco said about maybe some people make a conscious decision to emphasize a
Mm-hmm.
characteristic that they have.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if someone pronounces a word a bit differently, some
Mm-hmm.
people who have a speech impediment or naturally have
Mm-hmm.
different pronunciation, they can really emphasize things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but often things do happen naturally, I think, as well. Maybe if it's
Mm-hmm.
about your personality. So we have some comments about this as well.
Yeah. So Marco here says, I think comedians, oops. Yeah, I
Mm.
think comedians usually start from reality. In this case, people's attitude to make them bigger and funny and sometimes criticizable.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, sometimes they exaggerate what they already have and make it funnier. I
Yeah.
agree with that. Hmm.
Just one comment there, Marco. We don't really say criticizable, although I see where you got that word from, and it is
Mhm.
a great one. We'd probably say open to criticism, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe you have a different phrase, Anika.
I think I would personally say open to criticism as well. Like,
Mm,
I wasn't sure if it was possible to use it, criticizable. Like, nowadays, people coin their own words.
they do, yes.
April, yeah.
Yeah,
So, I
and
mean,
we do clearly
informally,
understand what you mean.
yeah, informally, I think people just come up with things, but probably
Hmm.
it's, yeah, I would say open to criticism.
Hmm. Okay, and Gianni says, I'm not an eccentric person, but sometimes I appreciate eccentric solutions, okay, in the field of art. Yeah, maybe so solutions is more about answering problems.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you do want eccentric solutions at work if there is a
Mm-hmm.
problem that no one can solve, um,
Mm-hmm.
or eccentric performances or eccentric visions, something like that.
I think eccentricity happens naturally. I mean, if something, and the opposite is kind of conscious decision. So the
Mm,
example that I was talking to you about me talking to myself, I think it comes really naturally. But
yes.
when I don't do that, I make a conscious decision. Okay, people are.
Okay, I think Gianni is struggling to hear, so we'll
Oh,
try to be a bit louder. Um,
okay.
okay. Um, Maybe one other thing that is often eccentric is fashion.
Hmm.
And fashion is usually a conscious decision. So when you
Yes.
think about the clothes that you wear,
Hmm.
okay, please let us know if it's improving. Okay.
Yes. Can you not hear any of us, or can you hear one person and not the other?
Hmm.
If they
Yeah.
don't hear us, then maybe they won't hear what we're saying right now.
Yes, they do.
Um, I'm gonna write that down if
Yes, good idea.
question.
Please tell
Yeah.
us, can you hear one of us, both of us? Um, we apologize. Okay. But if I continue in case anyone can hear, then something
Yeah.
like fashion, maybe you can. think about what you wear. Do you deliberately wear unusual things? Do you think your style is eccentric? I think my style is a little eccentric. Um, and some
Yeah.
of that is conscious, and some of that is finding things appealing sometimes. Um,
Mm.
I think this is a nice way to get into the next question. What do you think for the next question? Why is the word harmless often used to describe eccentric people? So what
Yeah.
does harmless mean, Anika?
So when harmless comes from the root word harm. So when you do something to cause damage or to cause problems, you're causing harm. And harmless is the opposite. It doesn't cause any problems or damage to anybody. So I think
Mhm.
the example that you gave, Emily, about um, people choosing a specific type of fashion items to appear eccentric. I think that's an example of harmless
Mhm.
eccentric. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. So why do you think the word harmless is often used to describe eccentric? So what do you guys think
Mhm.
about question number 3?
Yeah. I also wonder if it changes in different places.
Mm-hmm.
If people are more scared of eccentric people in certain parts of the world.
Yeah, that's a very good point you mentioned because I used to live in different countries before.
Hmm.
So I remember when I used to be in Malaysia, people were used to conform to um, the standard rules. And if anybody was eccentric, that wouldn't be really looked at with a really good eye.
Hmm.
I think it also depends on the culture of the
Mm.
place you're living in. So what about in the UK? Is it
Yeah.
a good idea to be a little eccentric about fashion or some
Hmm.
other way?
I think with fashion, people don't look at you twice in big cities,
Mm-hmm.
but in smaller areas, in more maybe more working class areas,
Mm-hmm.
potentially in the middle of England where I am from,
Mm-hmm.
then people will still think you are harmless, but
Mm-hmm.
they will find you quite weird and not
Okay.
necessarily in a positive way.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not celebrated,
Hmm.
whereas in other places, maybe it is celebrated.
Sure. Sure. Um, for example, I love it here in Milan. Sometimes when people wear different types of clothing that are not really standard, let's say,
Hmm.
especially during the
Yeah.
fashion week, they wear something really creative and different, and I think it's really nice. It brings
Hmm.
out the creativity in people.
Yeah. See, I agree with Jani's point. I don't see a strong connection between harmless and eccentric people. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's nice. I think maybe society wants to emphasize that there is no problem.
Yeah.
Um, Maybe this is me being cynical,
Hmm.
but I think sometimes it's a way to make eccentric people feel or seem less important because they're
Hmm.
harmless. They are not important to the way we think, maybe.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So Marco here says, so maybe sometimes wearing particular clothes is something that eccentrics use as a mask because
mhm.
they're fragile. Not always what appears outside corresponds to the inside. Hmm. So
Mhm.
that's an interesting comment there.
It is,
Um,
yeah.
hmm. So
Yeah,
Marco
thank you
thinks
for
that
that comment.
it's like a mask. Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Hmm.
So it's like a mask. Hmm.
Yeah,
What do you
I
think, Emily? Do you think it's like a mask that
I think it can be. I think fashion or clothes can always be a mask. If you think
hmm,
about makeup, literally a mask.
hmm,
And yeah, maybe eccentrics um, present themselves in a certain way
hmm,
because they are fragile, like Marco said, or
hmm,
because they want to emphasize a part of their personality in a
hmm.
certain way.
Sure.
So yeah, I think often there is something happening on the
Hmm.
inside that people want to express on the outside.
Sure.
And
Sure.
you're right, sometimes that corresponds, sometimes it
Hmm.
doesn't, which is an interesting point.
Sure. I think even the normal kind of clothing or uh, mask, let's say, can also mean they're not really, they don't correspond with the inner self.
Yeah,
Like it can always be a mask. Someone with
yeah,
normal clothing may not be so normal inside.
maybe
Yeah.
it's a scary thought in some ways. We are all
Yeah.
wearing masks and not
We're getting
just
really
hygiene
philosophical
masks.
here today.
Yes, I'm afraid. I'm afraid so. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and now we get even more philosophical with the question, what
Yeah.
is normal? It's a very deep
What
question.
is eccentric? What is normal?
What is normal? Wow.
Yeah.
Um, but I want to ask, what is the word that means the opposite of normal? Because it's not un. It doesn't begin with
Mm,
un, this one.
good point.
We have some other comments. Thank you.
Hmm.
So, Gianni on fashion. In fashion, eccentricity can be an aspect or a tool useful to be on the stage. Yeah. Also, if you are not a quirky person. Okay, so it can be a part of performance, as we talked about.
Hmm.
Maybe your character is not
Hmm.
eccentric, so you make fashion that eccentricity of yours. That's an interesting point. Thank you. Yeah, I think that can be very true.
Yeah, sure.
And Marco, today being normal, yeah, is
Hmm.
a way to be eccentric. Yeah. That is true. Maybe if everyone is eccentric, maybe you
Hmm.
want to be normal to stand out.
Sure, sure. Yeah. So, what is eccentric and what is... Oh, so the question that Emily had asked, what is the opposite of normal? So you
Yeah,
need a prefix before that to change it to the opposite. Anybody knows what it is?
this is something you often see in medical situations, for example, the
Yeah.
opposite of normal.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's true. Well, um, while we're waiting for people to answer, maybe we can speak a bit more about eccentric.
Hmm.
So, we have talked about fashion, some quirky behavior. What else could mean? Could people be eccentric in? What other
Mm,
areas? So, when I think about it, I often think about being creative in some ways.
mm,
So, for example, if someone is a writer, the stranger the story, the more interesting it is, I think.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think some writers are famous for
Hmm.
certain things, for maybe not leaving the house very
Hmm.
much, that kind of thing. So we have some
Yeah.
answers to my question. Jani, odd. Yes, odd is an opposite. Odd, another word for strange. Great.
Hmm.
And Marco, you're very, very close with a normal. It's actually
Hmm.
abnormal. Abnormal, which means something is not normal.
Yeah. I don't think I've heard any other word starting with the prefix ab except
No,
normal. That's the only one I know. Ab.
no, I can't think of another one either.
Yeah.
And unusual, of course. Yes,
Yeah.
Alessia, well done.
Hmm.
Those are all really great ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also, since we are talking about words beginning with normal, I
Hmm.
also want to mention the word paranormal, um, just because it came into my head. Maybe
Yeah.
something supernatural,
Hmm.
something very unexplainable. You can say something is paranormal. You might have heard of the film Paranormal
Oh,
Activity.
yes. Those are really scary. So I'm writing down the meaning just for you
Okay,
guys.
thank you.
And something supernatural and scary.
Okay. Do you think
Hmm.
being normal is a positive or negative or neutral thing?
Hmm. That's an
Does it matter
interesting
to you?
question. Yeah. So for me personally, if you ask me, I think being normal is probably if it's like all the way normal for too long, it can be negative. I think
Hmm.
being different or trying out new things or maybe even strange things can help us grow in some ways or learn different things. So
Hmm.
if you're doing something, maybe if you're doing our work in the same way every day and being afraid to change things, it could
Hmm.
mean we are like stuck in some ways. So some
Yeah.
sort of changes I think would be better. What do you
Hmm.
think, Emily? And also the
Yeah.
rest of you guys.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I also think that depending on how we use it and how often we use it, normal can be a very dangerous idea. It can be very exclusive. It can exclude
Mm,
people who don't have um, the most common characteristic, whether
mm,
that's religion or sexuality or anything like that.
yeah,
It can be a bit dangerous to think of a normal idea or a norm in that case.
definitely agree. Definitely agree with
Um,
you. We should be careful about how we define normal because
mhm,
some things
yeah.
may be normal to us and not others.
Mhm. I think this may bring up a difference between English and Italian, potentially.
Mm,
So, can being normal mean being boring? Um, not in the word definition, but the implication can be there potentially if something is a habit, if something is not a boring habit, but not in the word itself. No.
mm.
Yeah, so maybe in that sense, Anika, we should define normal. How could you define normal?
Well, that's a really hard question to be honest.
Yeah.
Well, normal is something that is pretty standard and how society looks at something as an acceptable behavior. Yeah,
Yeah.
which can be quite dangerous in many cases because it can exclude a lot of people, like Emily was just saying, from being part of a group. So
Hmm.
I think normal would be defined as something socially accepted, something
Yeah.
standard. Yeah.
Yeah, but of course, maybe scientifically, it can be more useful if you want to see what is common,
Mm-hmm.
um, and you want to, as
Oh.
Anika said, create a
Mm.
standard for
Yeah.
something. Maybe those are the more useful situations.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but of course, scientifically, normal has a positive meaning, such
Hmm.
as everything the test looks normal,
Yes,
no problems.
absolutely. There are no abnormalities. There
There
is
are no
there is nothing
abnormalities.
strange.
Yeah. Okay. So we have a comment from Johnny here saying, in general, Normal is positive.
Mm-hmm.
But as Anika said, with some lively and odd details, it is better. Lively,
Mm-hmm.
maybe we could use a different word with some
Yeah, I think maybe odd details
odd
make
details.
make you more lively, makes you more unique or individual.
Yeah, sure.
A nice point.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Hmm. Okay, so we have about 15 minutes.
Mm.
Maybe, Anika, we'll look at the other
Some
questions.
more other. Sure, let's move ahead. So here we have some more questions. Yeah. So what does it mean to be eccentric?
Well, I think we have
Yeah.
maybe
So we
exhausted
have
that
discussed
one. We
this.
will maybe skip that one. Um,
Yeah. So how
um,
about the second one? What are some other adjectives to describe an eccentric person?
mm,
Okay, so some people came up with new words, didn't they? Like odd, unusual.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, those are great ones.
Yeah.
What other
Quirky was a good
adjectives
one.
do you think?
Um, so
And yeah,
in other
quirky we had
words,
morning.
sorry, Emily, could you say that again?
Yeah, I just said quirky was also a good word, as Gianni said. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Um,
Um, oh,
I
okay. So,
also mentioned the word unique before. Unique
mhm,
is individual, normally in a positive way.
mhm. Okay. Sorry, I'm changing the notes a little bit to
Mhm.
check what um, we may have already discussed
Yeah,
or
I
what we
think this
haven't.
slide about people that you know was quite
Mm,
good.
mm. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I like the word unique. It sounds really positive and yeah, and it can be used for even if some people you may not think is eccentric in a good way, but using the word unique makes it sound positive.
Yes,
So
exactly.
what about
Yeah.
you? Yeah. So my unique behavior is that I
You,
speak to myself. So what
yeah.
about you guys? Tell us about your eccentricity. So if you want to share about anything you think is strange,
Hmm.
we are curious to know. Don't be
Yeah.
shy.
Oh, great. Another great word. Unconventional from Gianni.
Yeah,
Wonderful. That's, yeah, absolutely. I think
that's good. Yeah,
we are all in an unconventional situation at the moment.
it really is. So while we're waiting, maybe we can also discuss the next question here. Think of someone you know or used to know who could be considered as an eccentric.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I used to know this person who was a big hugger.
Oh,
Like,
really?
he would hug anybody and not just hug, he would just hug and stay hugging for a while,
Oh,
uncomfortably long. So
wow.
I think it was really nice. It was very friendly.
Hmm.
So just a bit eccentric or unique, some people might say. So I
Yeah.
personally knew that person. Did you ever know anybody who's eccentric or used to know?
Oh, many people. So many people. Most of them in my family.
Oh,
Um, oh, I'll come back to that because we have a really nice question we have from Marco.
hmm.
How do you define freak? Yeah, interesting. Is it negative? Yes, it is negative now. Yes. Um, and so is the so freak would be a noun for a person.
Hmm.
And freaky is the adjective. So we do occasionally use freaky for maybe an event that is very unexpected and very weird.
Hmm.
For, For example, if there is something, trying to think of an example there. For example, there is the film Freaky Friday,
Oh yeah.
which is about people swapping bodies. So there's
Mm-hmm.
something really odd, really physically strange about the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And freak, again, you can use for an unexpected event. So if there is a freak storm,
Mm-hmm.
for example, it's a storm that came from nowhere. You don't know why it happened, was completely unexpected. So
Yes.
those are the ways that we use it, really.
Mm,
We try not to use the negative word
yeah.
freak.
It's a very mean word to use if someone uses
Yeah.
it directly.
Hmm.
Yeah. I can
Uh,
imagine some bullies in school may
yeah,
use that word.
absolutely. Yeah. And I think I don't know if this is true in other languages, but
Mm,
in English, quite often negative words are reclaimed by a
mm,
community.
mm,
So, for example, the word queer was an insult for many, many, many years for gay people,
mm,
and now a lot of people in that community use it themselves.
mm,
And I can imagine people describing themselves as
mhm,
freaks is acceptable, as a joke or
mm.
as a label that they want to have, but it's not acceptable to call someone else that.
Yeah, that's an interesting point you mentioned. I've also heard that a long time ago the word nice used to be a negative word.
Oh, really?
And now it's nice, yeah. A long
Yeah.
time ago somebody told me
Oh,
during
really?
like I don't
That's
know
interesting.
Shakespeare's time or something. Yeah.
Yeah, that's often true in English. They often swap meanings.
Yeah.
So if you do read any older texts, then
Hmm.
you can be aware of the meaning changing a little.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean language always evolves.
it is, yeah. Yeah, thank you for that question, Marco. It was a really good one.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. Okay. So someone I know, maybe a relative of mine. I won't be
Hmm.
specific.
Okay.
Um, well, one eccentric thing was that he has always lived with his parents.
Hmm.
And he is, over 50 years old now. So this is maybe not eccentric in every society, but in the
Hmm.
UK,
Hmm.
then it is quite eccentric, and his manner of speaking is maybe more old-fashioned.
Hmm.
He maybe speaks a lot more formally than many people do in
Hmm.
every situation.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, those are the
Oh, that's
main two
interesting.
things about
Hmm.
him. Um, and he doesn't like touch at all,
Hmm.
and doesn't hug anyone, even family members.
Hmm.
So those are all eccentricities.
Hmm.
But again, I would say that none of them are positive or negative. They are just
Just
characteristics
neutral.
that
Yeah.
he has.
Yeah. For example, living with his parents can be acceptable in so many places. Like in
Yeah.
Italy, I think it's pretty normal.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah. There is nothing wrong with it. There is no problem.
Yeah.
I also once knew someone who
Mhm.
wasn't American, but he spoke with an American accent because he played so much Pokemon.
Mhm.
The game Pokemon.
Yes.
He learned the accent from
So he
that.
got used to the accent, the
Yeah,
American accent from Pokemon.
which is
Oh, that's
lovely.
funny.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah,
That's
nice guy.
really unique. I love it.
Yeah.
I sometimes wish I had a British accent, like an English
Ah.
accent. I try to fake it, but I don't sound very good.
Oh, your accent's really nice.
Thanks for saying that. I just wish I had your accent though. It sounds cooler.
Uh,
Although,
my
yeah.
accent is strange because it's probably hard to tell, but I have a strange mixture of English accents.
Do you?
So I am from the middle of the country.
Hmm.
My parents are from other regions, and I lived for a long time in the south of England. So I'm from everywhere.
I couldn't tell. So,
Jenny,
Jenny.
hmm
Hmm.
you go.
Okay, says a painter has to be an eccentric person. I agree with you. I think a lot of
Mm,
artistic people are eccentric. So the person that I told you about who's a hugger, he's a musician. So a lot of artists, musicians, painters, I think they think in a different way or have some
yeah.
behavior that are like people are not used to.
hmm
So yeah. So I think that
Biennale.
Vene- Biennale Venezia, we can find several eccentric people. Is it like, do you know about this, Emily? Is it like
Yeah,
an
the
art show?
Biennale, like an arts festival
Okay.
in Venice every, is it every year? I think it's every year.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, or
Probably.
maybe not every year, maybe, oh no, every 2 years, every 2 years, it
Hmm.
must be biannual. Um,
Okay.
yeah, I think so. I had a friend who went to the Biennale last year, and
Hmm.
um, she definitely dressed eccentrically. Her fashion
Nice.
was very eccentric.
Oh, nice. I love those kind of exhibitions, or I don't know, not exhibitions. I mean like events or whatever. So in Halloween, for example, you have the total
Mm,
freedom to wear what you want, or
yeah.
you won't be considered too different.
hmm Yeah, that's very true. Okay, so if anyone does want homework, for example, then you are welcome to do this task independently, to write a description of someone that you know or used to know, um, who is eccentric or could be considered an eccentric. Maybe think
Hmm.
about behavior, appearance, and any other features that they have that make them unique. Um, so that you don't have to do that, but you are welcome to if you want some more independent writing.
Yes. If you got some time in your hands.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Writing by itself is a nice pastime.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So maybe we can ask viewers to post any last minute questions because
Mhm.
we have like just over a minute left. So I don't want to run over the time. And so
Yeah.
we're almost at the end. So if you have any last minute questions, let us know.
Yeah, please do.
Comments.
Maybe just for our last minute, we can just recap quickly.
Hmm.
So we talked about different words for eccentric. I remember that's a noun for a person and an adjective. We
Hmm.
talked about the idea of normal and abnormal and the different positives and negatives of those. I know a lot of you talked about people and situations relating to this topic. And we came up with some synonyms. We said unique, unconventional, quirky, and other words there. So I
Hmm.
think we've had a really good discussion today.
Yeah.
I hope you all enjoyed it.
Yeah. I certainly did. So thank
Yeah,
you for
me
joining
too.
us, guys, and we really appreciate your participations.
hmm
And yeah, so
Yeah,
have a
have
very good day.
a lovely afternoon.
Right. Bye.
Bye.